almost like Goliath versus like another Goliath. Hey, what's up? Zach here, and today I have a pretty decent matchup between Roger Federer's new shoe company, On, and his signature Roger Pro versus the X, the Nike Vapor Pro. Now, of course, Federer never played in the Vapor Pro, and when he was playing in the other Vapor series, he was playing in a custom version of it. However, this would have been the shoe that he would have been promoting if he would have stayed with Nike. So let's put these things head to head: speed, comfort, durability, playability, each category out of 5, total out of 20. Now, in terms of speed, both of these shoes are incredibly fast, but for completely different reasons. To start with, the Vapor Pros are a lot more aerodynamic than the Roger Pros. Number 2, the uppers are a lot lighter. And number 3, the tread pattern and shank is meant for this shoe to bend and twist in all sorts of different directions to allow your foot to maintain maximum ground contact no matter where you are on the court. So wherever you are, you can get up and roll for the next shot. However, when you look at the Roger Pro, it's a much boxier design. It doesn't really have the lines of the Vapor Pro. It's not as streamlined. However, where the Roger Pro gets all its speed from is number 1, ground contact. The way the rubber is laid on the shoe with these rounded edges, as well as kind of the lack of a tread pattern, lack of tread depth, you get a ton of ground contact with the shoe. Also, with that rolled rubber on the inside of the shoe, you can transition from one footstep to the next, and your gait is a little smoother than on some other shoes. However, in the Roger Pro, you have to be a great mover to use the tools of this. The shoe also has a tremendously responsive midsole foam. So although it's not the most plush midsole, it does give you a ton of snapback. Plus, the shank on the Roger Pros is much more stiff and responsive versus the Vapor Pros, which is that plastic shank that does bend. So like I said, both these give you speed, but just in much different ways. And for speed, I'm giving the Vapor Pros a 5 out of 5 and the Roger Pros a 4 out of 5. The Vapor Pros get the 5 out of 5 because when I did play test them, it was when the courts were just reopening back up for summer and they had all sorts of garbage on them and debris, and I was still able to move incredibly fast and grip incredibly well even on a really poorly maintained court. Whereas on the Roger Pros, I really needed to pay attention to my footwork to really get them to do what I wanted and to get them to perform. Now, when it comes to comfort, this is probably the hardest category to judge these two shoes on just because they are so wildly different. Now, the Nike Vapor line is notorious for giving some people a little bit of irritation on the outside of their foot and not being the best shoes for people with pain and overpronation. However, the Vapor Pro model does have a really nice breathable light upper, which does break in pretty quick. And for more of a lightweight shoe, it does have a little bit more cushion in the heel because of the Zoom Air unit. And because of all that, it really isn't the worst lightweight speed focused shoe out there for comfort. However, the Roger Pros, in terms of step-in comfort, are one of the more comfortable shoes I've put on my foot recently, just because the uppers are so plush, made of such nice materials, and the shoe is made for Roger Federer's foot. So it is a little bit wider in the forefoot, it accommodates more foot types, and it's just kind of be meant for that step-in comfort. However, the midsole foam on the Roger Pros is not nearly as comfortable as what you get in the Vapor Pros with the Zoom Air unit, because the midsole foam is meant to be more responsive and more of like a player shoe, not a comfort shoe. And so for comfort, I'm actually going to give these both a 3 out of 5, the Vapor Pro, just because it doesn't fit that many foot types well. However, if you do fit in the middle of all those, it's going to be one of the more comfortable shoes out there. In terms of the On Roger Pro, it's great for initial comfort, however, with the midsole foam being so stiff and responsive, and for that low to the ground feel, as well as the tread depth not being very low, so you are going to start to feel the ground pretty quick. And so because of all that, both of these shoes are going to fit a little more of a narrower segment, no pun intended, of the tennis audience in terms of like the ideal player and the ideal player for comfort in these shoes. And the durability category is kind of a funny one because neither of these shoes are meant for durability. However, the On Roger Pro specifically is really not meant for durability. It's meant to be used at like maximum effort for 1 or 2 tournaments, and that's really all it's going to be good for, just really because of the tread depth. I mean, it really has no tread depth at all. It really just kind of has this diamond cut pattern in it, and you know, I was starting to bottom this tread depth out within a few hours. It was starting to scuff up pretty bad. So you know, these shoes are really meant for 1 to 2 tournament use and then kind of go on the shelf, and that's what Federer wants these for: maximum playability for a short burst of time. The On Roger Pro, definitely just about a 2 out of 10, just because it does have a pretty decent DuraGuard. Now the Vapor Pros, however, however, do have a little bit of a beefed up durability from their predecessors, the Vapor 10. The DuraGuard here on the toe cap is much more durable. It actually did do pretty decent on the Dremel test. However, it is still the exact same mid and outsole, and that outsole shank, that plastic, really broad shank, can actually crack on people, even lighter players that are using these for lighter use. Just make sure you watch out for that. Also, because of this broad shank and the shoe is prone to overpronation anyway, it can start to bottom out that way. So the Vapor Pro, even though it is better than the 10, still only about a 3 out of 10 in terms of durability. However, it's not meant for that. And last but definitely not least is playability. Now, starting with the Vapor Pro, I did really love playing in the Vapor Pro just because it has that sleek aerodynamic design like the Vapor 10. However, I felt that the uppers were just a little bit more inclusive. They kind of enveloped your foot a little bit better, a little more breathable type of shoe, really kind of gave you quick, swift movements. And, you know, for better or for worse on the shank and the outsole, the shoe does give you a ton of ground contact and ground feel. So I really did feel like these were some of the best quick playing shoes out there, and they do this better than just about most shoes. So definitely 5 out of 5 for playability for the Vapor Pro. There really isn't a better shoe, at least in my opinion, out there right now, that in terms of a lighter weight player shoe. Now, the On Roger Pro is a little bit of a different story. The On Roger Pro demands a lot from you. However, if you give it what it wants, it's going to give you back playability like you've never seen, just because of how this shoe is engineered. The shoe is engineered for someone that really knows how to move on court, and at least when I was playing in this shoe and I was paying attention to my footwork and really concentrating, the On Roger Pro gives you back that in spades. And so also I feel like this shoe is a 5 out of 5 in terms of playability, because this shoe is just meant for playability. That's really all it's made for. However, you have to be able to extract all out of it if you're really going to get to see all the benefits from it. So if you are going to buy the On Roger Pro, just know that if your footwork gets lazy, you're going to know about it with this shoe. I certainly know I did. However, when I was playing well and I was concentrating and I was kind of concentrating on my footwork, this shoe gave me such smooth, comfortable, and confident movement, I didn't want to take it off. And that gives us a grand total of 16 out of 20 for the Nike Vapor Pro and 15 out of 20 for the On Roger Pro. That 1 point in durability between the Roger Pro and the Vapor Pro really is like a cavern, because if you are just kind of an everyday player, not a professional that's getting shoes fed you all the time, the Vapor Pro is just going to last you quite a bit longer, whereas the On Roger Pro is going to give you a ton of playability and some really fun matches for a little bit of time. However, you're going to be searching for your next shoe quite a bit sooner than the Vapor Pro, and I think that's really the big difference between them. However, if you do have a chance to get your hands on the On Roger Pro, I do really recommend trying them out, just because they are such a different shoe than what you're probably used to, and they do play quite a bit different, and it is a lot of fun to play in them. But I think this just shows you there is a lot more to the shoes than just the raw numbers. You really have to kind of dissect into them to really kind of get at what these shoes are best at and what they're not so great at. But of course, I'd love to hear from you. What shoe do you think is the more elite shoe? And do you think Roger was right to go with the On shoe versus sticking with Nike and keeping with his old custom Vapor shoe? Let me know in the comments down below. Now, if you want to see some other head-to-heads and some of the brand new shoes of 2021, make sure you click into the playlist up above and subscribe down below. Respect your rubber and foam. I'll see you in the next video.